So much for coming on the Winners Paradigm podcast, brother. It's been a couple months in the making, and I really appreciate you, brother, for being flexible. Number one, two, being an amazing friend, but three, we continually try to make this happen, and bumps kept coming in the road. So I love that you're able to make it happen, and then just being an amazing dude, brother. So thank you. Before I get ahead of myself, brief intro: who you are, what you're passionate about, brother.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. No, this is going to be a great conversation. I know we're going to impact a lot of lives. A brief intro to me. Let's see how fast I can say this. Essentially, my name is Christopher Rausch. I'm known as the No Excuses Coach. I love to help people get their head out of their ass. It's one way of putting it. But essentially, my story is that back when I was 13 years old, I came home from school one day. I got expelled from school for fighting and came home and found out that my mom lost our house and we had to move out of our house. So at 13 years old, I became a seventh grade dropout, living in the backseat of a station wagon with 18 cats and 4 dogs because my mother was the crazy cat lady, had various psychological disorders. And for the next 4.5 years, I was on the streets, never went back to school, tried to kill myself twice. Unfortunately, I sucked at it. Had a gun put to my head one day. And I realized after that, when the guy didn't pull the trigger, that I'm going to get out of this situation in one of 3 ways. I'm either going to go in a police car because I was doing bad things with bad people. I was going to go in a pine box because I was doing bad things with bad people, or I was going to actually have to take responsibility for my life and leave my mother in a very bad situation, but the situation she chose to be in. So I decided to leave and then ultimately got around some really cool people. Somebody convinced me to go back to school and said, "Hey, Chris, have you thought about going back to school?" I'm like, "Are you crazy? I dropped out in the 7th grade. I did shitty in school my entire life. I was a poor student. I was bullied. I became the bully." I said, you're asking too much. I'm working 3 jobs. And he's like, "Well, just give it a thought. You can go back and get this thing called a GED. I'm like, "What's that?" And he said, "It's a general equivalency diploma." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, right." But I was dating his daughter. So I thought, oh, what the hell? This guy has furniture that he doesn't even sit on. So he's successful. I probably should take some advice from him. And so I went back, got my GED. And then he says, "What do you think about going to college?" And I'm like, "Are you fucking crazy, dude? Like, really? Me go to college? Like, I'm working 3 jobs. I'm living in an apartment with 5 guys. Like, you don't understand. We eat ketchup sandwiches. This is my life. You don't understand." He's like, "Chris, just try to take 1 class." And he told me this quote, and it's actually tattooed on my arm now. He said, "You're only limited by the parameters of your own mind." And so I want to get that across to everybody. When you think about that, you're only limited by the parameters of your own mind. And so I went to Golden West Community College here in Southern California, and I was scared shitless. I was walking, I was seeing all these kids on the playground, or not the playground, throughout the school. And I thought of myself as like this older person already, but I was only 19. And I walked in the admissions office and I was scared to death. And I said, "Hi, I have no idea what I'm doing." I said, "But I'd like to come to school here. Can you help me?" And she said, "Oh, do you have a high school diploma?" And I thought, "Oh, fuck, here we go." And I said, "No, but I have a GED." And she goes, "Oh, that's fine." And then 3 hours later, I wound up walking out of there with my first class, which was an interpersonal communications class. And let me tell you this, when they handed me that class, I thought, "Oh my God, they think I'm that stupid that I can't talk." That's what I really thought. I was like, "Oh my God, they put me in a class to learn how to talk." But it was probably one of the best classes I ever took in my entire career. And I wound up spending 12 years in school and getting my master's degree. The same year I bought my first house. And now I coach and speak and have my podcast, and I help people become successful in their own right.
Boom.
Boom.
Powerful, resilient, amazing, brother. And I resonate with a lot of it as well. Definitely when you're talking about, the route and then deciding for yourself, who you're going to be, how you're going to live your life. And I want to touch on that because I put up there, what does healing mean to you? And that's something that's been clear in your life. Is as you've went on, you've healed, but also understood that the reason why you live differently is because you don't want to revert to where you came from or
Yep.
even any of those mindsets. And that quote is amazing because that's something we constantly are thinking about is like, hey, what if? Or 2, it's like, what happens if you don't do that? And I too fall short of that. Is like, I think about the political point of people that I've been around, the street mentality. And then it kept me so limited. Like I would always get to that point where I was like, no, it's black or white. And it goes to the point, it's like, no, it's not. So before I get ahead of myself again, brother, can you talk about that portion is living your day intentionally and focusing on what's important to you?
Yeah. I mean, actually, that's how I start my day. It's something that I teach my clients to do. So oftentimes we wake up in the morning, and what we do, we grab our cell phones, we start looking at social media, we start looking at the news, and we start thinking, "Oh God, today's going to suck. Oh my God, my boss is going to be in a bad mood. Oh my God, there's going to be a bunch of traffic. Oh my God, this." And we start off thinking and setting the intention to find things that are wrong in our life. So what I do, and I've been doing this now for about 5 years, when I wake up, the first thing I do before I open my eyes is I say what I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for my son sleeping in the room next to me. I'm grateful for my wife. I'm grateful for the fact I have a roof over my head. I'm grateful for my animals. I'm grateful for my health. And then I go on to say other things. I'm grateful for the bed I sleep on. I'm grateful for the opportunity I have today to speak with Alundis. I'm grateful that I have a podcast. And I just start off with gratitude. And then the next thing I do to speak to your word is I set the intentions for the day, right? The intention for today is for me to use my words and my actions to make this world a better place. My intention today is to be present and playful with my son. My intention today is to make someone else's day brighter for the things that I've said and done, whatever it might be. But I set the intention so that as I'm going throughout my day, if I find myself having a pity party or being negative or being pissed off about something, I stop and I catch myself and I'm like, Chris, did you set the intention today to be a puss? Did you set the intention today to be a dick? Did you set the intention today to not be happy, right? To not be focusing on gratitude? Because I've proven time and time again that where focus goes, energy flows, right? And so if I tell anybody, it's watching this or listening to this, look around your room, tell me everything that's red. 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 Red. Okay, Chris, I got everything that's red. All right, tell me what was green. But Chris, you were telling me to look for what's red. That's what I was looking for. The same thing happens in life. If you're looking for the negative, if you're looking for shit to go wrong, you're going to find plenty of it. But if you look around and say, wow, it's pretty cool. I've got a TV in my office. It's pretty cool. I've got a stereo. It's pretty cool. I got an iPad. Wow. There's people in the country that don't have that stuff. I got a computer in my hand that I can ask any question in the world and I can get the fucking answer. Life is pretty darn amazing. So when we focus on that, that's ultimately what we get. And it's not perfect because people sit there and say, oh, Chris, well, it must be so nice to be you. You're always so positive. You're always so energetic. I'm like, no, you don't see me in my times of depression. You don't see me in my times where I'm doing deep breathing because I'm going through an anxiety, not a panic attack, but I go through anxiety attacks a little bit. I said, you don't see those moments, but those moments used to last 6 weeks. And then they started lasting 6 days. And then they started lasting 6 hours. And now within about 16 minutes, I can straighten myself out in a particular situation because I find that if I go back to that gratitude and I go back to that intention and I find, okay, did I achieve all my intentions today? No. What haven't I achieved? I haven't made a difference in the world today. Okay, I can do a live video. I can reach out to somebody on text message. I can send somebody a message. I can do something right now to be intentional. And when we give of ourselves, it's pretty incredible what we can give back. So it really is about having that mindset of sitting there saying, I'm not going to be a victim anymore. I'm going to rise above all of that stuff and that chaos that's going on in my brain. And I'm going to start speaking better to myself. And then ultimately I'm going to get better responses. What is it for you? How do you start your day?
Oh, I'm the same exact way. So depending if I'm getting up early or getting up late, I always start and end it the same way of that content. So usually interchangeably, it's the push-ups as well, because I got to get the physical fitness portion going in to get my body going. I feel like for me, the main component for me is the working out component.
Yeah.
So I know for me, if I am going to be saying I'm grateful, I have to be in somewhat flow state or be able to feel that, because the PTSD, the anger, it's so easy to not do the things and then revert back to that. So I noticed it for me. So it's the getting up in the morning, doing that. Really for now that I have a backyard, I just go in my backyard and I just sit here and I'm like, fuck, I'm just grateful. Like I
Yeah.
never thought I would have a house at this point in time. And I didn't want a house because of all the other financial burdens with it of thousands of dollars here and there. My wife was saying that the other day because our realtor stopped by, like, oh, it's been 2 years since we have the house. You didn't want to get this house. I'm like, yeah, or sorry, it's going to be 3 this year. Shoot. And I didn't want the house because of all the other things. But like I sat there in gratitude and I was like, man, we did get here. And then we're watching that Bluey episode where they're talking about selling the house. My daughter's like tearing up, and she's 2. And we're like, are you going to be sad if we sell this house? And she's like, yeah. And then I got emotional that night because I was 1 second.
We are live. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? Didn't realize we were live. He said his wife called. So what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? So we are live here talking with Alundis. Type in your questions. If you guys have questions for us, if you're watching live on the podcast, type in some questions into the chat. I'll be happy to answer those while he's taking a little bit of a breather here, talking to his wife. But yeah, hit me up. And then, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I do have a podcast. We're probably talking about that when he comes back on, but it's called Raw and Unscripted. You can go to rawandunscripted.com and check it out. It's a show I've been doing for about 5 years. It's all about motivation, inspiration. It's all about straight ahead talk like I am talking about today, and just designed to get you out of your victim state, just to be able to get you out and realize that there's so much more into life than what has happened in the past. Because when you focus on the past, guess what? You get more of that. And when you worry about the future, you get more of that. But when you're present in the moments, it's pretty incredible what you can get. And he's back out live with us. I didn't realize we were live, so I tried to keep the people entertained there for a second.
I appreciate you, bro. And my apologies, guys, for hopping off. The wife was calling. Everything is good, so we're all good to go. But I didn't want to miss the call and then have the 10 in a row. So, okay. So we're talking about gratitude. So, yeah, we're watching that episode, that Bluey episode, and it just hit me that night. I was like, man, I'm glad. Also, too, I would say it is, like I told you before we started, had this new shift of re-energy, started just feeling different. I was on a harder frequency, and I was like, no, it has to be this way. It's black and white, the old school mentality. And I realized like the same problems kept happening in different forms.
Yep.
And if I take the opportunity into my hands, there is no going to be life after I take the opportunity in my hands. So I put it into God's hands, which may not be something that I want within this current time, because in my case, it's no, you fucking did this, you need to pay.
Right.
And I can go down that path. And I realized for myself as like, I stopped going down that way. I was actually in Fresno with family. And while all this shit's going on, and it's funny because like I spoke it into a group, and all the other guys are like normal fucking dudes, live in the suburbs, like didn't experience any of the shit I'm talking about. And I'm not even trying to talk about it. Like that's not even me. It's just where it came from and the shit that's there. And some dude tried to bang on me at the fucking Planet Fitness. And I was laughing because like I seen him and he was like, what's up? And then I was like, hey, bro, like I see you getting it. Good shit, dude. Keep it up. And he just looked at me like confused, like, what are you doing? And like old me would have been like, oh, you want to take it outside? Like, why the fuck are you looking at me? But I just realized for myself, like, even if I am reactive, or that is the mentality that I had, it didn't serve me to continually keep doing those things. It didn't serve me to be like, oh, reactive all the fucking time. Because I did that shit at my daughter's birthday party, not because I wanted to, but because I said, hey, this is what fucking's going to happen. Don't invite this person. They're not liked here. They invite the person. I'm like, hey, whatever, and a situation happened. I handled it. I stood on the morals of, hey, this shouldn't be there. But at the end of the day, like there's always another way you can act. That's what I realized for myself. It's a revolving door. Is when you're not in alignment, when you're not meditating, when you're not breathing, when you're not getting the workouts in, not focusing on the nutrition, putting the cart back. Like I noticed all those small things that it just makes it compile over time versus when I used to say like, oh, I can do this here, but on the weekend I can drink. It's like, why don't you just don't do it, period, and then see how that works out for you.
Exactly. It's all about that. It's all about that upward progression. I mean, as we continue to age, I'm a lot older than you. And I know that when people see me now that haven't seen me in 20 years, they're just like, wow, Chris, you're so mellow. You're so calm. You used to be the party animal. You used to be the everything. And I'm like, yeah, because the intention is that each day, if we grow just a little bit, I call it the 1% rule. If we grow just a little 1%, if we let go of some of that anger and that animosity, if we find love and forgiveness, if we see people more the same than they are different, if we look at people, I look at people when they're acting the fool, I sit there and I think about them like in the sandbox. Like, what were you like as a kid? Were you abused as a kid? Were you bullied as a kid? What has caused you to be this way? Because a lot of things that create the person that we are today happened between the age of 0 and 5. And so a lot of our beliefs, a lot of our personality, a lot of our quirks, a lot of our fears were all based on some of those experiences that we had so young that we didn't have the emotional intelligence to be able to process it. But never are we in school, or never do our parents sit there and say, hey, here's how you handle anger. Here's how you handle frustration. Here's how you handle disappointment. We're told what? To get the fuck over it. You be a man, step up, shut up, stop being a pussy, all these different things. We get all these little feedbacks for us, and we sit there and we keep it all bottled up inside. And it's no wonder that one day that somebody says something to us and we fucking pop them in the face. Jesus Christ. Oh, bad. I've been hanging on to this thing for 20 years. And oh, bam, that felt good. Oh, wow. This is the way I'll roll. Nobody's going to fuck with me. And then we realize we walk around here all mad and angry. And it's like, I learned a long time ago. I learned this from my mom. We were talking before off camera. I learned from my mom. She always had to be right. She always had to be right, no matter what. And I thought to myself, I'm like, Chris, what if I just want to be happy and not right? Do I need to be right all the time? Do I need to be, because I thought about it and I'm like, what happens when I'm right? That makes you feel wrong. What happens when you feel wrong? You go into that defensive mode, like, oh shit, you're not going to prove me wrong. And we play the one-upsmanship. Oh, but this, but this, but this. And then ultimately it escalates. Nothing good happens out of it. I've been in serious situations and conflicts and fights and all sorts of stuff. And I've looked back and I'm like, was that really worth it? Was I being an ass? Like, why couldn't I have just stopped and like said, let me understand where you're coming from? And God's honest truth, out of all the lessons I've learned in my life, that one, seek first to understand, then to be understood, help my personal relationships, help my professional relationships, help my relationship with people I didn't even know. Like if the mechanic was being a dick, I'm like, hey, let me understand. How's your day been going? You know, it must be pretty stressful working on yeah, it is, man. Oh, thanks like for asking. Like then all of a sudden they're cool. And so I learned, do I want to be happy or right? And when I learned that, and I learned that the seek to understand, then to be understood, game changers in my life, I was able to let a lot of stuff go.
You hit it on the money. Yeah, I did the same thing. You know, I let a lot go. But also what I realized is I was just an asshole to be around. I would go in these entrepreneurship groups. And when I really started looking at it, it was like someone said tattoos and they're breaking it down. They're like, the reason why it's such a big deal is like a normal person wouldn't have tattoos. So when it's considered normal, that's what it happens is like for some people, they don't fucking do that. They don't have tattoos. They weren't around gangs. They weren't around all this shit to where drugs to where when they see it, it's the big fucking deal. And I'm like, no, that makes sense. You know, it's like, well, you abuse it. But I was just kind of hearing somebody's perspective because their walk of life and the way I've walked life and even like going to the good schools that they were saying. And I'm like, oh yeah, I've been around rich kids. It was like, my experience is different. You know what I mean? Like I went to a rich school. I didn't have money. They're like, fuck no, get over there, you know? And I'd go over there and they're like, there's the ghetto people. And then I go, I was working at a mortgage brokerage. Someone called me ghetto and I like really thought about it. I'm like, am I ghetto? And I start going down. My wife's like, actually, you're pretty fucking ghetto. I'm not going to lie. And that was when we didn't have money either. So we're eating like hot dogs on the stove with tortillas. And that's where like I assessed everything. And I was like, man, this isn't me. But if we do live in those things, and my point of the entrepreneurship group is like, I would get irritated being around these fucking guys. Like I'd be like, bro, this guy's not fucking it. He fucking sucks. And then guy would be texting me also too. It's like a smaller frame guy. So he's trying to tell me about losing fucking weight. I'm like, no, bro, your body type versus my body type's completely different. I work out more than you do because we tracked everything everybody was doing. And for me, the injuries, the minor tweaks is what I had to keep doing to start losing the weight. But I was getting irritated because this guy's like, fucking 160 pounds telling me at 210, this is what I need to be doing. I'm like, no, I love you, dude, but I'm not going to fucking listen to you. And then our mindset's totally different. So he went on, Wes Watson's a bully. I was like, bro, why are you being a bitch? Like, don't fucking be talking about another man like that. Like, just because their style's not yours.
Right.
And comes into me is like more reflective work. I didn't have that. You know, I didn't have that time. Like you said, you know, we're told to all ands, buts, don't fucking matter. Don't be a bitch. Suck it up. So that was my train of thought. When I had the conversation with my dad, like I was saying, I laid into him, like, don't fucking call me, you know, and then he gained weight. I was just like, why are you sending me a picture? You fat as fuck. Like, you think I want that? And I was like, hey, how you should treat me? Keep that same energy. And I went all in on it. And I just realized then was like, bro, what am I doing? Like, yes, I feel good in the temporary, but the long term that degraded my character because then I broke, you know, then I no longer was that same person in talking about that. So another situation happens and now I got to go fucking hurt somebody. And now I'm like, fuck, that's what I want to do. But again, this changed man that we're talking about, this man that's helping people recalibrate mindset, doesn't do those things. And I sat with that for like 2 days and it sucked. And I just kept praying to God. I kept journaling and I was like, God, why does it have to be this way? Like, why can't I just fucking do this and then go away for a little bit, you know? And when you look at it, it's like, why are we going to do that to our kids? You know? And really, I just stuck on the why, and got myself out of that bad vibration. It sucked, you know, that it was a couple days of that low frequency. But 4 workouts a day for those days got me to start thinking clearly and not take any action. So I went on this long tangent just to show, like, even when you do that, if you're not focused on the energy you're putting into it, you're not focused on how you're living, you could easily revert back to the same way. And that's really for me, like, even drinking was like, hey, fuck it. It wouldn't be so bad, you know? And you're like, why would you do that if it's almost been 2 years?
Yep. You're growing. I'm proud of you, man. I mean, that's what it's really all about. It's like, ask yourself the question, who am I becoming? Who am I choosing to become? And I think that that's a great opportunity for us to, like, for me, when I was at a funeral back in 2008, I thought about it. And I'm like, if I died tomorrow, I was watching everybody get up there, eulogize my coworker and saying all these beautiful things. I'm like, fuck, what a great life she lived. I had no idea she did all those things. And I sat there and thought, Chris, if you died tomorrow, who would show up and what would they say? And God's honest truth, man, I was like, about 20 people would show up with Miller Genuine Draft and bottles of Jack Daniels and Bon Jovi and Motley Crue records. And they would say all the stupid shit Chris did. Oh, remember that time Chris got fucked up and did that? Remember that time Chris got fucked up and drove his sand-rail off a cliff? Remember that time Chris did that and dated 3 girls and got busted? Remember that? Oh, yeah, he wrote a best-selling book. He was an amazing coach and he changed the world. And I thought, do I really want the postscript of my life to be that the thing that I'm working on the most? Do I want to be remembered for that guy? And so it was being very intentional to sit there and say, how can I break that stereotype? How can I start changing that? And so I went home and I wrote my eulogy. And God's honest truth, when I got done with that, I set the paper aside thinking, okay, I did that and kind of just blah, blah, blah. And I stopped and I was like, no, something told me. I heard a whisper, and I talk about these whispers, a whisper for God, whisper from my spirit guides, whatever you want. And so I picked up the pad of paper and I sat there and I started reading it. And I went, well, if I'm at a funeral, I'm going to read it out. It's going to be read out loud. So I start reading it out loud and I get halfway down the page and I start crying. I start not boohooing, but I just start having tears run down my face. And I'm like, holy shit, what's going on? And the part that I got to was that Christopher Rausch will have fought for what's right and what's fair. He will have risked for which that mattered. And he will have left the earth a better place for who he was and what he did. And I thought, wow, that's powerful. How can I every single day wake up and set that intention? How can I be that person tomorrow? How can I continuously put that 1% effort in so that when my time comes, whether it's tomorrow or 30 years from now, that when people show up, they're going to say, oh my God, Chris changed my life. Oh my God, Chris was there. Chris was authentic. Chris was real. Chris, poured into me. Chris cared. Chris, changed humanity. That for me was like, wow, if I could be on point like that every single day and make that difference, that 1% improvement, where will I be in a year? Where will I be in 3 years? And I'm happy to say the growth that I've experienced in the last 4 years has been what most people probably experience in 20 years because I've been open. And I've heard you say some of those words, the frequency, the vibration, all that stuff I thought was bullshit. Meditation, breathing, breath work, chakras, all that shit I thought was bullshit. My tagline used to actually be, I help people overcome their self-created crap without the self-help fluffy bullshit. Oh yeah, just manifest it, ladies and gentlemen, and your red bicycle will show up. It's crap. But because I continue to be open-minded, I've surrounded myself with people who do breath work and have taught me about meditation and taught me about vibrations, frequencies, and chakras and stuff like that. So now I understand it better and I'm able to have that as a part of my life so that when I get frustrated, when I get angry, I literally was doing it just before we were doing our show. I have what's called binaural beats. They're actually frequencies, one frequency in this ear, one frequency in this ear, and it helps balance out your brain waves because I have ADHD on crack. And so every single day for 20 minutes, I go and I listen to these binaural beats, whether it's a meditation one or it's a motivation one, whatever it is. And I change the frequency of what my brain waves are doing. And I sit there and I visualize for the last 10 minutes, I do it silent. For the last 10 minutes, I visualize my success. I visualize me on stage. I visualize me being a great dad. I visualize me listening to my wife. And so every single day, I start my day off that way. And then midday, I do those things. And it's not perfect, but it helps create that future self of us so that if I did die tomorrow, if this is the last thing I ever do and my son sees that's for me, everything is my son, then I'll be proud. I know I'll be proud. It's like, wow, I made a difference today. I shared some stuff on your show. I made somebody think a little bit differently. That's what we should all be rising to. And if we all did that and we stopped worrying about you're doing this and you're doing that and you're different from me and you're that color or you're that sex or you're that political party, all that bullshit. If we stopped doing that and started focusing inside within ourselves, the world would be an amazing place. What do you think about that?
After going back home, that's where I started feeling the gratitude and feeling that same thing. I've always said I hate Fresno. It's a fucking shithole. So
I've been there once.
Say that. Yeah, when people in the military be like, Fresno, I'm like, bro, it's a fucking shithole. And they start laughing or like anybody who knew. And this time around, it hit more than ever. Like I was just on a different feeling getting there. But really like just sitting there, and thinking. And it was just like doing the same thing. It hit me because my sister-in-law's having a kid and she's like, oh, I want you guys to move back. And I want the kids to go to school together and they're all going to go to the same high school together. And I was like, fuck, dude, like, I really don't want that to happen. Like my mom went to the same high school. I went to that high school. My wife went to that high school. Her dad went to that high school. And then our kids too. Like I don't want that. There's more to the world. Now moving out to Marietta, it's like we're starting to see that there's more to the world. To me, we talked about when we were going to get a divorce, and she's like, moving back to Fresno. I was like, bro, my life's going to be fucking over. Like, that's one place I told myself to never fucking go to.
Yeah.
I don't want to be there. Bad things happen. So, really, this time being there, it hit me because it was like, we can't get mad at people who do the same thing over and over and over. But at the same time, it's like, when is enough enough? And everybody's
Mhm.
gonna have their time. So, like you said, the years of work that you've done, and you've multiplied it essentially because of how much you've invested in there. It's like the same concept with me, to where I feel like it's hard to really go around there. Me and my wife had that conversation. A lot of our marriage, initially, I would be the reworking, doing school papers, so I didn't go around family. And even when I was going to go, I made a big deal about it. I don't want to fucking go. I don't want to be there. Now I've been more present. But what I can say is like, it's hard, and for me, energy is everything. I
Mhm.
don't like being in situations where I feel like we're not going to win, but two, like, to just be talking about nothing. And that's really what it is like, a lot of times people are just talking about whatever, doing whatever,
Yep.
drinking, whatever. I have a family member like that. Like, love the dude. He has a good fucking physique naturally, lean. He can add on some size, but motherfucker wants to drink all the time. Then when you tell him something, he's like, "Oh, I do my thing." And I'm just like, bro,
Mhm.
you have all these fucking issues in your life. You know what originates from drinking? Why fucking drink? He's like, well, it's easy for you to say that. I was like, bro, I was drinking a gallon of whiskey at one time. Like, I repeated the same shit that I hated my parents for, and would be like, fuck them, blah, blah, blah. Like, I did that. I live with it. I looked that man in the mirror. My wife was
Yep.
gonna leave me. Like, again, someone's going to learn enough is enough. But it really hit me this time around going back home, and got me emotional because it was just like, it's the same thing, and when you're in locations where it's hard like that, like, one of the things for me that kind of gave me a little panic attack is the $25, or excuse me, 24-hour gym was $75 for 6 days or $75 for the month. And I was like, I don't want to pay for that because over here, I have one for 30 bucks a month that I go 24 hours a day. So, like, that was the thing for me because I'm trying to stay up later. Now I got to wake up early. Now I got to wait till 6. And I'm going to help my wife with the kids. So, even being in my own fucking head where I could have just ruined everything, started a fight with my wife, is what I would have done. And I really had to sit there and be like, hey, this is what we need to do. This is how I need to show up. Schoolwork still got done. I still hit up clients. I still did all the work that I needed to do. Macros were still on. Well, macros are a little less,
Yeah.
since I was sitting around. I cut a lot of carbs out because I didn't want to just consume carbs and then
Right.
overindulge. So I suffered a little bit, but it was just a reminder for me. So it hurt, because sometimes it's not what you want, and that's where growth happens. We have to be able to endure that pain a little bit.
Yeah. Didn't you feel proud of yourself though? I mean, that's my word for the year. I always have a word for the year, and my word for the year is pride. So didn't you
I
feel proud of yourself when you left there? Like, man, I've excelled. I've changed. I'm becoming a different man. Those guys are going to wind up resenting life and being regretful and being unhealthy and having diabetes and being on 12 medications. Where I'm going to live a long time. I'm going to enjoy my family. I'm going to be there. I'm going to make a difference in the world. Didn't you feel proud of yourself?
After my wife said that, so my wife was like, "Hey, what's going on with you? Like, you were just a lot happier to be around, blah blah blah." And I was just like, "Yeah." And then two, I take a genuine interest when I find myself not wanting to be there. So,
Yeah.
like, my mother-in-law and me spent a day watching fucking reality TV shows, and I just acted like I liked it. Why I didn't like it? These fuckers are going out in their 40s fighting each other at the bars and shit. I'm like, bro, come on, dude. Like, so that's again, like, it adds context, and I'm like, oh, this is a great show. And I'm like telling her, she's like, you like it? And da 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 da. We're talking about the characters because one of the dudes' girls cheated on him, he cheated on her. They're bashing this guy. And I was like, you know what? I like this guy. Like, at least he's made amends. He did what he had to fucking do. He learned his lesson. Like, what else are we gonna say? And I'm saying that as a dude who comes from that position.
Right.
And me and my mother-in-law are like talking, but it was a reminder to me, like, that's what happens with people. You do your own thing. You work hard, you go home, you play video games, you drink. I played a little bit with my mother-in-law's boyfriend. And it was just like, it's easy to not do what you're supposed to do. It's easy to check out.
Mhm.
It's easy to talk shit and gossip about other people. For me, I'm not like that. If I say something, it's because, like, hey, I see something that can be improved on. Like, I'm not here just to fuck around or whatever. And even I started selling some products, and they're like, hey, touch these, text these closest people to you and try to sell to them. And I'm like, bro, I got 5. Like, I don't spend my time with a lot of people. I just make sure it's gonna be well deserved. And then I give my all to them. And I'm like, now at this position in life, like, I'm not trying to be what I used to and try to fill that void. Like I'm just really sentimental about the moment, being the best way that I can, and then giving back to everybody and giving value. Because again, like who am I to see you drinking and then be in front of you and be like, yeah, man, you're doing great. Like now I'm gonna hit you and be like, hey man, what's going on? Like why? What's the underlying problem? Because I know for me, no one wanted to do that when they see me talking about blowing my brains out. One of the nights I seen my best friend, and he died of cancer right before I deployed, and I was talking about blowing my brains out because my stepdad was gonna. All right, so boot leave. This was like 2 months before that. My stepdad caught my mom, my wrestling coach, which she was having an affair with. We didn't know at the time. That the door closes in the bathroom. The only bathroom that was open was in their room. So they walk to the house. I see my stepdad go at the corner of my eye. 45 cocks back, misses within a centimeter of the coach's face, and then fucking yeah. So I go in there, de-escalate the situation. Excuse me. I walk to the hallway. My mom's out first. Dude comes out. I put him in a car. Call the cops. Ghetto birds over the house. SWAT team goes through. Wakes up my brother and sister. So I was just in a very fucked up position because I'm thinking about that. Wanted to hurt my stepdad. Not knowing my mom's manipulating the fuck out of me within that. And then my brother, my little brother, says, oh, yeah, my dad said he's going to buy me a Glock. So I don't know why, but got blacked out drunk that night. I drank like 3 bottles of Amsterdam. One of my buddies that was there dying of cancer. And I'm saying, I'm going to blow my fucking brains out. And no one really said anything to me on it. Like, it was just like, hey, you talked about killing yourself. We have videos of you talking about killing yourself. They didn't want to send it to me, which I was like, how are you going to fucking take videos of me and then just keep that shit over me?
Right.
But that shit hurt, you know? So on deployment, I had this tattoo. I got it of a warrior, and like she's crying because blood's coming out of her eyes. And I had a dream. And my buddy came up to me and he was just like, hey, man, I love you. Like, that's an amazing tattoo. I get it. And put a hand on me. And like, then it gave me a little bit of closure. But for me, it was a lot of actions, a lot of things where it was like repeating the same shit over, fucking hurting because we weren't given the tools, the resources, seeing people follow through. Because again, it's timetable, or they show the one thing that is online, you know, and that's what I learned, like with even people. Now that's where I'm real intentional on what they're doing, watching them, not because I want to be nitpicky. In the past, it may have seemed like that, but because I'm just trying to be the best I can be. And if I can help you, cool. But if not, like the last thing I'm going to do is surround myself with people again who are in person, they're different than what they are online.
You got to be. I mean, that the 5 people you're around the most. Stephen Covey talks about that. Take out a piece of paper and write down the 5 people you're around the most. Are they positive or negative? And so oftentimes we hang around people because, oh, that's my sister, that's my bro, that's just how they are. But that toxicity will bleed into our personalities. I mean, we hang out with those people. I know for me that when I told all my bros, my heavy metal friends, you know, that I'm going to go to school, they're like, oh, Mr. Smarty Pants is going to go to fucking college. Mr. Smarty Pants is too good for him to do coke anymore. And I'm like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. My little fuck you sprinkler came out. And I said, I'm not going to wind up like you guys working telemarketing jobs and construction jobs and living 5 people to an apartment. I'm not going to continue doing that for the rest of my life. I'm going to choose to level up. And so unfortunately, I lost a lot of those friends. And then I reunited with 3 of my good friends probably about 15 years ago for a funeral. One of our friends was actually sick before she died. And the 3 of us went out to lunch and we were like talking, we're like, how did, you know, whatever happened to Steve Rainey, whatever happened to Chet, whatever happened to Robert, whatever. And we started feeling like fucking Chet wound up in the Nevada State Prison. He was my mentor. He was 7 years older than me. I was 16. And he was like the guy that didn't drink. He had a really cool car. He was in construction. He had his shit together. And then one day I went over to his house and he was fucking doing cocaine. I'm like, what are you doing, dude? He's like, oh, it's nothing. It's nothing. And then I found out later on, after everybody kind of disbanded and everything, like he wound up in the Nevada State Prison. Steve Rainey wound up killing himself. Our drug dealer wound up killing himself. Another guy wound up being homeless. And then myself, Gina, and John were sitting there talking like, how did we turn out different? Like, how did we not wind up in that spot? And we all realized through that conversation, like we chose not to. We chose to break the cycle. We chose to get around different people. We chose to take risks on ourselves. We chose to not live in that victim mindset. Like, oh, I'm fucked up because my mom abused me. I was beaten by my mom. I was beaten by kids on the block. I was beaten by kids on the school. I had zero confidence. But slowly and progressively, as I started taking those imperfect actions, I started building that confidence and I started building that resiliency. And then once I got around Bill White, the guy that you know had me do this, let's see if I can show it to you. That's the tattoo that says you're only limited by the parameters of your own mind. When I got around that dude, and then all of a sudden he started pouring into me, then I started, you know, getting around other people. I'm in college now. I'm talking to college students. I'm realizing there's so much opportunity and possibility that if I think I'm a piece of shit, if I think that I'm a loser, if I think that I only deserve to hang around these people, if I think this is all I'm ever going to be, that's what I'm going to be. But if I decide, like, if I could take that imperfect action and take that interpersonal communications class and realize that I was only hearing people, I wasn't listening, I wasn't really trying to understand people. And when I started doing that, my relationships started to improve. And as my relationships improved, my opportunities got better. And all of those little things, those 1% little things, helped me level up and become this person that I am. It's back to that word you said before. It's that intention. Like, who am I becoming? Who am I choosing to be? And so many times we're sitting there reliving the story of the past, like, oh, I was this and I was that, and that's why I'm like this. Like we were talking about before, my sister, when I met her again, she's like, oh, I'm screwed up because of mom. And I'm like, you left when you were 16. You've been around your dad who was normal. How can you blame it on mom? You don't understand. But she was just so convicted. There was nothing that was going to change that victim mindset. And I was like, I can change. And if I can change, anybody can change. And I think that's the reality of the conversation that we're having is we're two guys that have been in situations that most people would never want to be in. We could tell stories about all that. But what's most important is the men that we're becoming now, the leaders for our kids and for our wives and for our communities and for our brothers and sisters out there who look to us and say, wow, if he can do it, then I can do it. Because anybody listening and watching this, if you're in a situation where you're feeling negative and stuck and deconstructive, you can start taking that imperfect action by getting around the right people, setting the intentions, start taking better care of yourself. Like you said, working out. I call it the 5, like it's free: hydration, nutrition, sleep, exercise, and vitamin D. Most people don't hydrate. I've been drinking my water. I drink half my body weight in ounces of water every single day. Our body's like 60 to 70% water. If we're dehydrated, guess what? We make shitty decisions. So I know when I used to drink a handle of whiskey, I would wake up and I'd be dehydrated and I'd feel like shit. And guess what I would do? I would eat crap and I would sit there and watch TV and drink more to kind of run away from that feeling. And guess what? It perpetuated more. But when I started realizing when I hydrate myself, ooh, I feel better. I have a little bit clearer thinking. I don't make as many stupid decisions when I have clear thinking. When I go to the gym, I feel a little bit better. I'm feeling stronger. I'm taking pride in myself. I'm eating more nutrition. I'm eating more fruits and vegetables. Guess what? I'm starting to feel better. I'm have more clarity. I'm getting more shit done. I have more energy. Oh, geez. Now I'm getting vitamin D because I didn't realize I was vitamin D deficient. So I was feeling depressed. Started getting more sunshine, getting intentional with that. The sleep, I wear an Aura ring. I started tracking my sleep 5 years ago. Realized that, I thought when I drank, I slept great. When I put the Aura ring on, I found out I didn't get any deep sleep. I wasn't getting any REM sleep. My sleep cycles were all fucked up. You're supposed to have 90-minute interval of your sleep cycle. So I started tracking my sleep and I was like, okay, let me not eat after 7 o'clock. Let me not drink. Let me not doing these things. And all of a sudden, oh, wow, I started getting deep sleep. Then I started waking up and feeling better. And all those things build upon themselves. And so many people won't even just do that. And so for those people, I feel sorry for because they're like, well, Chris, that's for you. And I'm like, no, you can actually do those 5 things completely for yourself and be free. And you can get around the right people and you can start asking better questions in your phone. You can go to ChatGPT and you can figure out the solutions to things. You don't have to stay stuck in those situations. And I think that's what makes us 2 unique individuals that I hope are inspiring other people to think differently.
Well, again, you hit it on the money, and I hit that this year. So I was pushing so hard, sleeping 2, 3, 4 hours a night. I got sick 3 times already, and I just wasn't my best, And then it started going into the lifts to where last year I tested out of 100 carbs a day, 100 grams of carbs a day was not it. Eventually didn't lead to good things, and then at this time, not getting sleep. So I went back from pushing hard and saying you don't need fucking sleep to realizing like now you actually do need sleep because it was holding me back. So I appreciate you, brother. Chris, you've been an amazing guest today, brother. I know we definitely will do another interview in the future. But before we do that, I'd like to leave you with the last question I ask everybody who comes on the show. What would you say to the previous version of yourself? You don't know where to start. You just want to say that one thing to get yourself going to your ideal version of success.
I said it before, take imperfect action. So many times we sit there and think, it's got to be perfect. It's got to be this. We have this vision. I'm not going to do it until everything's well planned out. Just take the imperfect fucking action, ladies and gentlemen. Just fail your way to success. My coach asked me this a couple of years ago. She goes, what makes you the person that you are today? And I said, I took imperfect action and I never fucking stopped. That's why I say unstoppable in all my social media posts. I'm like, I never stopped. I never gave myself an excuse, hence the no excuses coach. And I just took that imperfect action. I failed my way to success. I started a website. Let me just get a main page up. I got a main page up. Okay, let me figure out another page. Let me just do all these things and take that imperfect action. And slowly but surely you gain that confidence. You gain that realization that it's not that bad. It's not that hard. And as you start to take that imperfect action, you start to build your confidence and your awareness and your opportunity to think, you know what? I did that. What else can I do? Can I raise it up a level? Can I do something else? And, for me, that's what I did to be able to become the person I am today. So I'd make that recommendation to anybody listening and watching this. And thank you, man, for having this. I appreciate it. And I appreciate your honesty and your boldness out there, because I see you and I appreciate you, because I know you probably saw my post. I think it was on Monday, where I was talking and I called out a bunch of people in the personal development space. And I'm like, a bunch of fucking frauds and phonies and hypocrites and bullshit artists. Get the fuck away from me. Unfriend me. I don't give a shit. I've been snoozing people, leaving people, because the people in this space need to be authentic and real like you. So I appreciate you, man.
I appreciate you, brother. And it meant well. That's why I comment on there. I was like, I hope he doesn't remove me. So I comment on there because I ran into that is meeting people and then they're just totally fucking different in person. The good and the bad I've seen. So I'm like, what the hell? Like, you would have never experienced it if you wouldn't have been in person. So I appreciate you, brother. Where can people find you if they want to keep up with you, hear more of your story?
Super easy. NoExcusesCoach.com. They can go to NoExcusesCoach.com. My podcast is there, Raw and Unscripted with Christopher Rausch. They can check everything out, my YouTube and everything else. But yeah, they can hit me up there.
Perfect, brother. Well, thank you. I know we'll definitely have you on again. It was an honor, brother.
I appreciate you. Thanks.